Okay, just want to go over the format of this workshop. This is a workshop on the interim car CAT. And what we're going to do is we have two World Board members present. We have Irene and Yoel. And they're going to do a presentation of the material that's in the car and CAT. The way we're going to do it is we're going to do like a motion at a time. And we'll have Irene and Yoel will present the information, and then we will open up for questions on each motion as they get presented. We'll do motion discussion, motion discussion, motion discussion. All right, those questions will be open to anyone either virtually attending online or anyone who's here face to face. Now, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. All right, and we will deal with all the questions as they come up. We have plenty of time here for the material. There isn't all that much material to cover this cycle, and so it really shouldn't take all that much time. But if you do have questions, that's what we're here for. So you guys understand the material that you need to present to your regions, hear from your members to your groups. Okay, so please don't leave here not understanding what's in here. Please ask the questions because you have a lot of experience here that will be able to answer those questions. Okay, everyone understand how we're going to go ahead and do this? Any questions on how we're dealing with this? All right, terrific. Okay, so we are going to start off, and I'm going to hand this over to Irene. Go ahead, Irene.
Hello, hi, I'm Irene. I'm an addict. Very nice to meet you. I'm coming from the frozen tundra of Ireland. I wish I was back in Florida with you guys like I was a few weeks ago. And I'll let Yoel introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Yoel. I'm an addict. I'm a World Board member, and I live in Israel. I'm delighted and excited to be here. Thank you.
All right, so what we're going to do is, so this is the interim car CAT. There are only 5 motions that the World Board is presenting. I understand that this is being translated. I normally speak very fast, so I'll make a special effort here to slow down. So also just to let you know, I live in the middle of nowhere and occasionally I have internet problems. So if that happens, I'm gonna share my screen, but Yoel will share his screen and I'll hop back in if for any reason I get kicked out. So
Irene,
yes.
I just wanted to say Michael B is with us. He's a board member as well.
Oh, sorry, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael might want to give a shout out there. I don't know if he can unmute himself. Oh, he's giving a little heart there. Okay. I think only the co-facilitators can unmute themselves. Is that correct? For the moment? Okay. Anyway, yes, Michael is joining us for a bit of support there. He's also not too far away from you guys. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to start the first PowerPoint. Let me know when you can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Because it's saying my connection's unstable, but anyway, we'll carry on. So I know in your particular zone, there are many people doing service and many people in this room who know an awful lot about this, who have a long history with the World Service Conference and who are very informed. But I'll speak to these as if I'm speaking to somebody who maybe doesn't have much experience, because I understand that one of the reasons that the World Board does these is to sort of that can sometimes be a help when they go then and present it to their regions. Obviously, because we're available to answer questions. All right, so there's 3 PowerPoints, and just to let you know, all of the materials available at na.org under World Service Conference. So you have videos, which is basically the PowerPoints, but with talking over them, and PDFs. And there's also the entire interim car CAT, or IC as we affectionately call it. So anybody can feel free to go ahead and deliver what they need to deliver. Now, I am going to move this forward here. So basically, as most of you know, our next face-to-face World Service Conference will be at 2023. So we plan to have, unless something else goes horribly wrong, we plan to have our normal full conference with, as usual, many motions from all over the world. As you all know, also, we could not meet in 2020 due to the pandemic. And so we had to go virtual online. That had an awful lot of challenges. Obviously, we have members from all over the world. People were being expected to make decisions at 3 in the morning their time. You know, trying to have a conference from your house, maybe where you have a crying child in the next room. There was a lot of challenges with doing it. And I don't think anybody wants to do an entire virtual conference again. So what we proposed was doing an interim car and cat, which is basically just essential business that needs to get done before 2023. So what we considered essential was a moratorium on the FIPT inspection clause, term links, the budget, and then SPAD. Now, SPAD wouldn't be legally essential, but the book is ready. And it's our understanding the fellowship wants to see the ready book. So why not go ahead and vote on that? Okay, so that's the background. Now, I'm just going to move on to the next slide. I think I've just said that. Okay, so motion 1 is World Board motion number 1. Acting as a trustor, the delegates present at the virtual World Service Conference 2022 are continuing the suspension of Article 5, Section 3 of the FIPT operational rules while we make a decision about the future. This suspension will expire at the close of World Service Conference 2023. So the intent of that is to extend the existing FIPT moratorium on the FIPT inspection clause in the operating rules for 1 year. So obviously, if that doesn't pass, it will expire at the end in April 2022. So, okay, so the Fellowship Intellectual Property Trust. I'm not going to do a workshop on this. This is a very long and complicated subject, which many people have varying opinions on. But all I can tell you is about our particular motion. First of all, there's an essay. So in the ICC, there is an essay on it where we try to explain as clearly and succinctly as possible what the fellowship trust is and what the inspection clause is and why we're asking for a moratorium. If you go to na.org, you can download a copy of the FIPT and you can download many related materials, bulletin over the years. So the FIPT, it's a legal document and it basically pertains to our intellectual property. So basically this is all of our literature and the NA symbol and our name. So that article was suspended temporarily at 2018. 2020 continued the suspension until 2022. And the whole point of that is so that we could discuss any changes and discuss any changes and with the fellowship as a whole. And the World Board did have a motion prepared with some changes for 2020. And obviously we didn't get to that though in the virtual. So we've asked for a suspension and we more than likely will be resubmitting that motion. So that is the end of what it says on the slideshow. As I said, there is an awful lot in the FIPT, in the ICC. Okay, So I'm going to pause now and see, I'm going to stop sharing. No, I won't stop sharing my screen, but just see if anybody has any questions or discussion on that.
Okay, thank you, Irene. All right, so what we're gonna do, FIPT, motion number one. Is there anyone here who does not know what the FIPT is? Good. Okay, would you like to know what the FIPT is, other than what's just been described?
Randy online.
Okay, so we do have, again, just so as Irene explained, it's a complicated thing, but it's very simple. The FIPT is created to protect ourselves. Okay, protects our literature. Okay, the copyrights on our literature and the copyrights on our trademarks and our names. Okay, so it's a legal document and it describes. There's an inspection clause in there. Okay, we actually had an inspection of norms. After the inspection, the conference voted to suspend any more inspections until that whole section of that legal document has been addressed. And because of COVID and things like that, it's been postponed and postponed because there has been the time to actually deal with that. It's just a general outline. Any other, so it's Randy online has a question.
Ask him.
I did it.
Good morning, everybody. Good evening and afternoon, Irene. Welcome.
Hi, Randy. Thank you.
I am asking this question because I suspect I will be asked this question as we take these motions back to our areas and home groups. And I have to preface it by saying, I think this zone is probably a little bit more familiar with this motion than many. And we appreciate the challenges.
Wow.
Jeff, sit down. So, what I'd like to clarify, if possible, is there is a fundamental concern, possibly as far as why this is necessary to do. And taking this at face value that we don't want to have an audit over the next 12 months before the next WSC in 2023. Can you put in not too complicated terms what the cost would be in terms of time or money, or what are the concerns if this does not pass? Thank you.
Okay, well, to be honest with you, I don't have a figure of, okay, first of all, it won't cost anything unless there is an inspection. And if there is an inspection, the cost of the inspection entails how many staff hours it takes to be able to do this and how much of staff time it takes to do this. Now, we did come up with a figure. Actually, as you said, there's a lot of people in this room very experienced. I actually don't remember it off the top of my head how much the last one cost. Maybe we did publish that. Maybe Jeff, do you know? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's about, the actual cost is about $10,000.
Yeah, so that was the cost. So obviously, you know, that's what would be incurred if this does not pass. Now, if this does not pass, that doesn't mean there's going to be an inspection. It just means there could be an inspection. And obviously, also to say in simple terms, what the World Board is looking to do in our proposed motion that we proposed in 2020, we're not trying to stop the fellowship having inspections. The change we want to make, the substantive change, is that rather than one region deciding if there was to be an inspection, that it would have to be a collective conference decision. As in any time that any of NA World Services resources are used, it's the collective decision of the conference to use those resources. So this would just simply be in line with current policy. That, of course, there could be an inspection, but the conference would need to decide, as it does on everything else NAWS does. So that's as simple as I can put it.
That answer your
Does
question?
that make sense?
That does. Can I ask a trailing question, Irene?
course.
And again, I know we don't want to get into the whole FIP right now type thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this without getting too far into the weeds with this. I think that the fellowship has a fundamental concern about how well we're managing our finances. And I have learned that we have a finance committee, and I know personally that the board has been intimately involved in how we manage our budget through the pandemic. Can you expand a little bit on some of the oversight that is currently in place? I know we have an annual report, but it doesn't go into oversight in the annual report.
Okay, well, first of all, at the World Board level, we have an executive committee. I'm on the executive committee. And during the pandemic, we meet every 2 weeks. And we would meet with the executive director and the assistant executive director, Anthony and Becky, every 2 weeks. And everything that is happening at NA World Services is reported to us. Anthony, currently, have you seen the videos? On a very regular basis, he's putting up financial report videos up into na.org. We have the annual report. This year's isn't out yet, but that does go into quite a bit of breakdown about how we spend the money. Regarding oversight, there's a business planning group. We're actually meeting this evening, this evening my time after this. The business planning group meets on a regular. We have the budget that goes before the conference. We have regular reporting. And of course, anybody in the fellowship can write in any time and ask any questions to any of us in any aspect of the budget. And of course, the World Board, we oversee the office, but we serve the fellowship, obviously.
Randy,
Is that what you meant by oversight?
It does. I think that there's a fear in the fellowship about visibility into this, and I think there's a lot more visibility than many people realize. The only comment, I guess, for my clarity, I think those videos from Anthony are on the web participants site, and it's up to the RDs to disseminate this information, I think, for the most part. So,
Yeah,
but anyway,
it is
Irene,
available.
that's my point. It is available. So Irene, thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff. Thanks, Jeff, for your help there.
All right, thank you, Randy.
Could Irene, could I just expand on that we do get weekly reports, and it's actually day by day income and inventory, and we do see all the figures, like not once a fortnight. We see it every week. Every week we see it. So I think it's quite transparent.
Thank you, Yoel.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an online question first, then I'll get to Joanne and Matt. Brian asked, who would be doing the inspection, Irene? And if you can give that answer under the current guideline for the inspection, and then under what you're proposing.
Okay, just to be clear, currently, any region, and what we're proposing, as I've said, I'm just saying we are more than likely intending to go ahead with the 2020 motion. Well, we haven't discussed that yet, but we're more than likely. And that would be, we would be proposing the conference decides. The conference has to decide, and then the details, who would actually go in and do the inspection, those would have to be worked out. We haven't got that far ahead. That would be up to the conference. The substantive change is a move from a region requesting an inspection to the conference requesting an inspection. At the moment, any region can.
Just to expand on that.
And just keep in mind, this was written in 1993 when NA was a lot smaller, and the world has changed a lot since 1993. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff, please.
Yeah, just on what it is now to do the inspection, what it is, it's the region that requests the inspection does it along with two world board members. Okay, under the proposed guideline would be the conference would select who's going to do the inspection. Okay, I think that's the way I understand it. Is that correct, Irene?
That is correct.
So, Brian, I hope that answers your question. Joanne?
Yeah, I'm an addict. My name's Joanne, and thank you both for your service to our fellowship. I understand, because I was around in 1993 when the FIP was introduced to the groups, that this part of the FIP was put in for transparency purposes, because there has always been a concern about transparency in the budget and the amount of money that World Services spends and where exactly that money is going. Now, when you turn around and say that a region is not a conscience, a region is 16 areas, and how many groups in that area? So I don't understand how you can say a region is not a conscience, because a region is not one person. A region is a bunch of groups that create an area, and that area then creates a region. And when you're talking about the South Florida region, you're talking about thousands of addicts that wanted to have this done and wanted to know the transparency. And there were there were problems found. No, nobody was stealing, but there were problems found. So my thing is now, why is it becoming more difficult for this to be done, instead of understanding that this only creates more people saying, why is this becoming so difficult? There must be something. You know, when things become difficult, then you make it harder, and people say, well, there must be something going on, because otherwise they wouldn't make it so difficult. It took a year for the South Florida region to even begin to do this inspection that was requested. It was stalled until the World Service Conference to get everyone to weigh in on it. And now the World Board wants to sit around and make it even more difficult. You know what you let everybody think? Well, something wrong must be going on.
Is there a question?
Yeah, my question is, why are they trying to?
Thank you.
And that a region is not one person. How can they consider a region not a true conscience when it's a bunch of groups that have gotten together? Those are my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe I could answer that. I don't know if I wasn't clear. I never said that a region wasn't a conscience. The regional delegate absolutely carries the conscience of their region, but the World Service Conference is made up, well, it fluctuates, but approximately 126 regional delegates. 126 regional delegates make up the conscience of the conference. And at the World Service level, as at your regional level, we decide things by group conscience. The group at the World Service Conference are all of the RDs collectively. And anything we decide together. And it's actually, as far as I'm concerned, a very positive thing. You know, this is for me what has kept NA alive and free and very similar for the last 60 years. If you walk into an NA meeting in New York or New Delhi, you're going to hear the same message because we come together at the conference to decide things together, to make an inspection impossible or more difficult. And there is, of course, there's suspicions there's something to hide. There's always been that suspicions. And it's not just at World Service level. It happens at group level, area level, regional level. We encounter this in NA all the time. Whenever it comes to money, there are always suspicions, right? But you were saying that the inspection clause found something. I'm not really sure what you're referring to. The full report is available. And I believe that there was nothing whatsoever untoward found. There were some recommendations, but there certainly wasn't any evidence of anything happening that shouldn't have been happening. So that's how I can explain that about what we mean by the group conscience of the conference.
Just not to,
They decide how we spend NA resources, NA funds at World Service level.
I'll deal with this.
Found in that report.
Excuse me, Joanne,
I'm sorry.
just go into this. Just
I'm done.
to clarify, there were 10 issues in the inspection. Okay, 5 of those concerns were proven to be valid. We have credit card guidelines in our in the Guide to World Service that are not being followed. Okay, we have travel guidelines that are not being followed. Okay, we have issues with how inventory that's being written off is done, and things like that were found to be valid. Okay, so out of the 10 concerns, 5 of them were proven to be valid concerns. I'm going to now throw in my 2 cents on it, and once and for all, say that we went through a hard time with this inspection. There's been one inspection in the 25 years of the FIP up until that time. Okay, and the only result of that inspection is going to end up being, it's going to be difficult for anyone to do another inspection. Okay, that's going to be the only change, because none of the concerns that were addressed, Irene, and I brought this up to the board a number of times since the inspection, is that none of those concerns has been addressed. I understand about COVID and laying off of things, and that's part of the reason why none of those have been addressed. So I do understand there are reasons why. Okay, but I just want to say to the board, please don't forget those concerns that were identified. Okay, they are still problems that in the future, when the board and the fellowship has gone through this pandemic, that those concerns will again be addressed. Okay. So I'm going to get that.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Okay, Matt, you have a question?
Yeah, a member of my region brought a concern that I'd like to hear addressed about the wording of the motion. That I named Matt.
Hey, Matt.
That the trustees, which are the World Board, are bringing a motion to the conference on behalf of the trustor as the delegates. In submitting a motion as the World Board, the trustee of the FIPT, that begins with the words, acting as the trustor. So a member of my region brought that question and would like to hear a response to how that was decided that the trustee can submit a motion that begins with acting as the trustor.
Irene, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm finding it very difficult to hear. Can you
The
repeat?
question was, the actual motion itself says acting as the trustor. Okay, but the World Board is not the trustor. The board is the trustee. So how's the trustee acting as the trustor is the question.
Yes. Because the rest of that sentence says, acting as the trustor, the delegates present at the virtual, the delegates. That's what the rest of the sentence is.
Go ahead, Matt.
But it is the World Board that is submitting the motion, right?
No, okay, listen, I think we are submitting the motion about the continuation of the suspension, which the delegates voted for in 2022, the delegates acting as the trustor. And I also don't want to get ahead to what motion we're going to put in 2023. All that we're asking with this motion, and obviously you vote for it or you don't vote for it, whatever your conscience tells you, we're asking for the continuation of the moratorium until we can come together as a in-person conference and present motions and have discussions. But yes, we're just merely we're looking to extend a decision that was made at the last virtual conference.
I think better to answer it, because you're asking a legal question, and this motion is put in actually correctly, okay? Because the World Board is, because you can't have all the delegates make a motion. The trustor can't make a motion because it's all the delegates. So basically, the World Board is acting as a trustor for the delegates, for all the delegates. So that's how they are able to make a motion. But it's really all the delegates that are making the motion. Because it's as a trustor, the delegates present are making the motion.
But it's the trustee submitting the motion.
Right, on behalf of the entirety of all the delegates.
Okay.
We're just looking to extend this until we come together as a full conference. This is just an interim legal business, you know, just to extend it. We're not trying to change anything now. We're just trying to extend what was already decided.
He was really just saying it's more of a technical question that Matt was really asking on that. Now, Ezra, you have a question for, just so you know, I got Ezra's gonna be doing for online, then I got Randy, Craig had a question, and then Angie.
We're gonna unmute Lawanda.
Good morning, family. LaWanda, grateful recovering addict. The first thing I would like to say, those of you all that are present there, if you all could speak up, it's a little hard. I'm trying to understand your questions. The first question I have is, we're an inverted triangle. And how is it that the board is making the motions and the motions are not coming from regions or from areas or from zonal forms? Because the board works for us. It kind of like sounds like to me, and I want some correction where I'm wrong, that the board is trying to tell us what to do. And the young lady, to me, she said it so well. Why is it that the board does not want this to come from region? For us to have transparency, for us to be audited. The other question is, how long is it that you all stay in office? Because I don't know. So I'm asking, how long is it that you all stay in office? Because maybe the time frame needs to be limited when it comes to this money situation. So I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want to go into opinions. I just want questions.
Okay, all right. I'll thank you for your question. I'll just take it backwards there. Regarding term lengths for World Board membership, it's 6-year terms. You can do 2 6-year terms. And all of the information is in a Guide to World Services. That's at na.org. It explains in very good detail what exactly are all the service positions at the World Service level. So we're voted in at the World Service Conference by the delegates present, and it's a 6-year term, and you can serve 2 6-year terms. And yes, I agree with you. It is long. Trust me, I'm finding it long. But the thing is that when there is a huge amount of stuff to learn. It's extremely involved, you know, and it does take up a huge amount of our time. And just like you, we're doing service. We're not like, you know, and it is a service that is very time consuming and is very long. That is true. Now, the second thing the first thing you asked, I believe, I think I already answered that. Why we are suggesting that the conference, well, first of all, we're getting ahead of ourselves. This motion is just about extending the moratorium. Just for full information, I was explaining to you about the 2020 motion, because this has come up whenever we do these. Well, if you do put in a motion, what's it going to say? And that's all. That was the main gist of it. That everything we do gets decided by the conference rather than individual regions, and we don't feel this should be any different. There was another thing there. I'm sorry. I'm getting old. I can't remember. I should have wrote it down. Was there a third thing you asked, Wanda? I'm sorry. Did I miss something?
No, it was the two questions.
Yeah, I don't know how much more I can say about this. That there was a moratorium and we're just looking to extend the moratorium. Oh yes, sorry, no, there was a third question. Why are we just making, first of all, yes, I absolutely agree with you. It's an inverted pyramid and we serve you. Nobody is saying otherwise. We're making, and the reason we're making these motions, it's an interim CARCAT. It's to deal with essential legal business. This is not the normal World Service Conference. Like I said in the beginning, nobody, I don't believe anybody wants to do an entire World Service Conference virtually again. And in April of 2022, this year in 3 months, the whole world can't travel. And we don't think it's fair if only some delegates can come. There are a lot of countries, including world board members and regional delegates who would not be able to come to a face-to-face conference in 2022. And we believe everybody should be represented and everybody should be there. So that's why it's not happening till 2023. At 2023, it's not just the world board who makes motions, it's every region in the world who wants to make the motions makes them. This is just essential legal business to get us to the actual full conference. There are some things, there's a moratorium, we gotta decide whether to extend it. There's term links, which Yoel is gonna explain next, that there's gonna be a consequence if they're not extended, and there's a budget. That's it. This is not trying to stop, we were starting now. One of my jobs on the EC is to work with regions making their motions car ready. There are motions starting to come in already from all over the world for 2023. The deadline is August, and myself and Jack will be working with people throughout the month of August, dozens of regions from around the world on their motions, getting them car ready. Absolutely, this is not about suppressing anybody's voice. It's just about getting legal business done. It's an interim. That's why it's called an interim car cat.
Okay, and I have another question. I keep
Yes.
hearing you say, we believe that no one else wants to have a world virtual. How
Yes.
is that, how is that decided? Has it come back to the region delegates to bring it back to their region so it can come back to the area? Because this is the first that I have personally heard that we, and I'm wondering who is the we, decided that we don't want to do this virtually again. We have to go on with business. We don't know if in 2023, if this God that I don't understand will release us to meet again in 2023. Because me personally, my we would have thought that 2022 we'd have been meeting. So that's the other
Sure.
question. And then I do have
So
a question.
Lawanda, I
from
just,
Go ahead.
Wanda, can I answer that first one, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just put up the slide, a slide I showed earlier on about where that decision was made. Okay, so the conference participants voted to postpone the World Service Conference until 2023 and have a short business meeting in 2022 to address legally essential business as well as a decision about this principle. And that was 92% in favor. So that's what I mean by we. I'm talking about the conference participants who represent your region. All of our direction comes from the conference. The board
Okay.
didn't decide this on our own. I also would very much like to have met in 22. By the time I get there and see all you guys, it's going to be 5 years. It's an awful long time. None of us want this to be happening. But the burden of doing an entire conference virtually was felt, I believe, by 92% of the people who didn't want to do it again.
Okay. So my question was this a vote that was brought back to our region? Or was this a vote that the delegates decided that they felt that we had given them a vote of confidence to make the decision right then and there? Because I don't recall it being brought back to the region.
No, I believe, no, this was decided by the delegates, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, did you say something, Jeff, there?
No, does that answer your questions, Lawanda?
Yeah, it does. So that means I need to talk to my delegate, because this was a question that should have come back to the region. This shouldn't have been left up to it. What is that? 120 people?
Okay, Lawanda, feel free to bring it up at your.
Okay, I'm gonna bring that up, but I'm gonna mute myself now.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank you, Lawanda. And if you have any more questions, you can email. I'll put my email up at the end. Anybody can contact me directly.
All right, everyone, just so you know how we're going to do this now, if you have a question in the room, please come and stand up over here and do it because Mike's having a hard time picking you up.
Just doing a call on, right?
So I know we have a bunch of questions, and I got Craig, Angie, Sherry, Ramon, and then online.
Yes.
Okay, right? And just so everyone understands, the reason why usually as a facilitator, I don't, interject things in there, because we're talking about the inspection clause. Reason why, all right, the reason why I do interject things on the inspection, okay, is because it is the South Florida region that did request the only inspection in laws. Okay, I was the RD during the inspection, and I was the one that went out to California that did the inspection with the 2 World Board members. So that is why I'm interjecting. And because of that, I do want to answer one of LaWanda's questions. Okay, the philosophical reason why the board is offering a change to the inspection guideline. Okay, and they will be offering one by in the next, in 2 years or whatever. And that real issue is, should one region be allowed, okay, to basically stop everything, okay, and force the board to do an inspection? Okay, that's the philosophical thing. Even in groups, you need to have a second to a motion before it gets addressed, or an area or region. Okay, but in this case with the FIPT, it allows one region without a second, without the conference, without anyone to be able to do this. So that's the philosophical issue that's being discussed now. Right now, because of the way the COVID came up and things like that, has forced us to not be able to address that question yet. Okay, so therefore we're just doing moratoriums as an interim solution until that main question gets addressed. So that's really the all-encompassing issue that's surrounding that first motion. Okay, so now we have Craig. You just stand up from there.
I'm not being Craig.
Great.
And thank you, Jeff, for providing just some background and some filler to help fill in the gap, because I think that's what a facilitator does, right? And we'll talk more about that. I'm not going there. Anyway, and I don't have a question, but sometimes when maybe some misinformation is being provided, I think it's important sometimes to put things into context. Prior to 1998, there were I was around in 1993, and a lot of people in this room. Prior to 1998, there were multiple budgets. There was not one budget. There was a board of trustees, a board of directors, the World Service Conference. And so because of that, there was sometimes confusion with financial information at World Service. Part of when the conference made the decision to restructure and to create a world board, part of that was to create a unified budget, one budget for World Service. And so when I hear things about transparency, I can relate to that because I was part of that change. I served on the first World Board. I served as the chairperson of the World Board. I served as the World H&I chairperson. So I have a little bit of context to speak from. And so I think part of the issue and the board and the delegates have made that clear. It's not so much, and I'm just going by what I heard people share over the past several years. Sometimes it's not about transparency as much as it is being able to understand the financial reports and being able to break that down in a way that a home group member or anyone can read that and can understand in a way that's translatable, right? And so, and I don't mean translatable in terms of language to language. I mean translatable in me as a member being able to understand sometimes what seems like an overly complex financial report. And so what I heard delegates say is, and the board has responded, and thank you, Jeff, for pointing out those things that hadn't been corrected yet. But what I heard Anthony, who is executive director of the office, and I'm not trying to put him on the spot and put his words in his mouth, but what I've heard, the response is that we will work to make those reports more understandable and to break some of that down. That's what I've heard people share about. It wasn't so much about transparency into the budget and world service as much as it was being able to understand that and being able as a delegate or an RCM or as hell, just a member. We're all members. The most important title I have is member. That's the most important title that I have is a member. And being able to break those reports down in a way that our home groups understand. And here's the way that our home groups need to take accountability. And I'm gonna stop preaching wherever Craig is at. But is reading the information for those who are interested and seeing how world service works, seeing how the region works, seeing how the zone works, and being able to correlate those budgets and that information. So I just wanted, for me, sometimes I think people with experience and have real first direct experience, such as myself, I need to sometimes just stand up and give that information to people. Because when misinformation is given out in a room this big with people that are gonna go back and tell Joe, Jane, and all those other people, that's how misinformation continues to permeate in our fellowship. And that we don't all have the same level of information. That's a problem. So thank you guys for listening.
All right, thanks, Greg. Angie? Come up, please.
Hi, family. My name is Angie. I'm an addict. Okay.
You get no special privileges.
Wow. Game on. Hi, family. My name is Angie. I'm an addict. So you had mentioned, first of all, thank you everybody who's here and online for your service to our fellowship. You had brought up that there was 10 inconsistencies in the audit when you initially did it. 5. Okay. Could you enumerate those for us? Because I do have a home group in my area that's going to be asking that question.
The first one had to do with their credit card guidelines.
Credit card guidelines?
Okay, and the guide will service. Not being
Okay.
followed. They haven't been followed for 20 years. Everyone knows about it. It's just something that's just never been taken out. Their travel guidelines. The same issue that we've had over the years with travel guidelines. There was issue with how bad, don't make me look it up. There were 3 others. I will send them to you. There really are. It had to do with, shit.
Where can they be found? Where can we find it?
It's actually online. You can go actually to the na.org.
Okay.
Okay, it is in there. Irene, you happen to know where that FIPT thing is?
Yeah, it's under, just go in the search bar at na.org, FIPT. I don't have it up in front of me, but you'll find that. The complete report is there.
Okay, /FIPT.
So
And you'll see the whole inspection document and the report of the
thank
inspection.
you.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
can I clarify something? Jeff, you mentioned there are 5 points. The point that I was trying to make earlier when I said no major problem was found, I mean, would you agree with me that you found no evidence of wrongdoing? There was technical stuff, there was absolutely guidelines need to be updated, little improvements that can be made, but I mean, there's no evidence of monies being misspent. Would you agree with that?
I would agree totally. That of all the things that we checked, we found one item, okay, a travel item that was put in the wrong place, okay, for like $100.
Okay.
Okay. Everything else, as Irene said, was all technical things, guidelines and stuff like that. Okay, and how the accounting was being done. Again, but there was even the accounting questions were all technical in nature. Okay, and so yeah, I just want to be clear on that. No thievery's going on. No one was ever suggested either in the inspection. Just to be clear on that as well. But yeah, we found nothing major like that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to make clear because unfortunately, how human nature works is that, first of all, let me just say that as an NA member, as well as being on the World Board, I fully support every single thing that's written. I believe in rules, I believe, well, guidelines, I believe in all that, you know. The inspection was in our guidelines and it was done. You know what the inspection did for us? It highlighted changes that need to be made. Jeff is absolutely right. There's always better ways to do things. We can always improve on our policies and procedures. And that actually highlighted it and got the fellowship talking about it. So it wasn't a bad thing at all. Our only issue is not that we're trying to stop. Like I said, we're not trying to hide anything. We're just trying to be consistent across the board with how NA resources are used. That is the only reason that we would suggest changing the operating rules. And if the fellowship don't want to change it, they won't be changed. It is just going to be a suggestion on the part of the World Board. If you don't want to change it, it won't be changed. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's, you know, but I just think it's our nature sometimes, if, you know, to be suspicious, especially when it comes to money. And, you know, that's normal. That's normal. So we try, and I think Craig, thank you for your great experience and service as well. You know, we are continually trying to improve things, and with the technology, and I suppose one of the bright spots, if you want to call it that, from the pandemic, in this terrible time we've all been through, has been our greatly enhanced use of technology. How many more conference participant webinars, how many more fellowship webinars, to start putting up Anthony's videos online, to make the reports much more frequently. We are doing everything in our power to be as transparent. It's not my money, it's not any World Service, it's your money, it's our money. And we are trying our best. And I'm saying we're always open to improvements, but we're absolutely trying our best to be transparent. There is nothing to hide. It's just a bit complicated when you have 5 World Service offices. And as Craig said, you know, there used to be a World Convention Corporation. It was divided up. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. Now, I'm not an accounting background. I'm not an accounting person. So even when I'm reading it, you know, I find it a little bit tough sometimes, and I have to ask a lot of questions. But I'm just saying we're trying our best to be transparent, and we're open to any suggestions.
Thank you, Irene. Okay, Sherry? I got Ramon, and then
You can take my name off the list, I passed it.
anyone else have questions, want to raise their hand? Put you on the queue.
I'm Sherry, I'm an addict,
Hey, Sherry.
AD from Central Atlantic region, and I just need some clarification as to this process and why we're in it. My understanding, how many regions were there in our fellowship back when the FIPT was created? Compared to how many regions we have today? Because what I'm seeing is a thread of that, and it's piggyback on what Jeff said after I put my hand up, is that right now, back when that was developed, we had a lot less regions because our fellowship was smaller. And now that we're larger, more global, and what we hope to look at is, instead of one region is that multiple regions, all of our regions globally, have an opportunity to weigh in whether or not we spend our NA funds on another inventory. And but I was wanting that statistic of the differences between how many regions we had then and how many we have today, to understand a consensus as far as a global fellowship consensus, determining whether or not we spend those funds for another inventory. And I think that that's kind of the gist of this. So what this motion is about is holding off until we have an opportunity to discuss the amount of input from the whole fellowship, not just one region, the way it is today, and look at whether or not we need to change that. Is that correct?
I think Craig and I have come to consensus. We have about 65 to 70 regions.
And we have about 112, 113 now.
Correct.
Okay. Thank
Irene,
you.
you have any better information on that?
No, that sounds about right to me. I mean, you know where anybody can see it, where it's really clear. Have you guys seen that video, The Growth of NA? It's that kind of cool video that shows it over the years from the beginning. That's at na.org, and that shows 93. I mean, 93 is the year I got clean, so I was particularly interested in that year, how much it's growing. But yeah, it's on that video. It's a really good 3 minutes, 3 minutes of how NA has grown.
Okay, great. And, we're gonna try to put that link on the, in the chat for that. It's a great video. It's like cool music too. So I got okay, Ezra, you have a question online?
George?
Is it Jorge?
Jorge?
Hello, my name is George. I speak English just a little bit, and be patient with me, please. I want to share about the conference participants voted to postpone the World Service Conference until 2023 and have a short business meeting in 2022 to address legally essential business. Well, come on, guys. Why this decision don't go to the groups? Because it affects NA at all. It's a very big amount of money, and we can have, you can change experience, and you can make decisions with online meetings. Then why we will continue to spend a lot of money in a presence conference, world conference? You know, in Brazil, the majority addicts, the most part of addicts can go to United States because the USCR prohibits, don't give the visa. Okay, then we have in a digital world, in a digital conference, a more inclusive conference, and it maybe will change to another kind of more participation in process of decision. Okay, is it this decision? I think goes to the groups.
Right. Thank you, Jorge. And I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can you address the issue of how motions get addressed?
How motions get addressed. Okay,
Not going back and stuff like that.
I thought Jorge was talking about the decision to postpone the face-to-face conference.
In this case, specific case, because we know that a lot of decisions can be decided into the conference, but this specific decision, I think it must go to the groups. Okay, this is my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jorge.
Okay,
Let's talk about the specific decision and the decision-making process of that, Irene, please.
Well, if he's referring to the poll, that happened, I can't remember, I don't know, Yoel, if you remember what month that was in, but I mean, that decision has been made, and it was made based on worldwide participation. You know, and your Brazilian RD would have been there also and would have been part of the decision-making process. All I can tell you is that what's on that slide, the percentages, we did a poll, and this decision is passed now. You know, I mean, we're in the middle of this. We're doing the interim car cats. This is not a normal time. It's not a normal process. This is not how things normally get done. We're doing an interim CARCAT. We had to do an emergency budget before. We're just trying to address things that are legally pressing. This is not normal times. In normal times, there is a very inclusive process for every decision, and the motions do go to the groups. This was something that had to be decided for the health and safety of our members and the ability of people to be able to travel and I mean, to only have some members come to the World Service Conference flies in the face of what it's about. It's about us coming together to make decisions that affect us as a whole. I mean, that's all I can tell you, Jorge. This is not a normal process for decisions. Do you know what I mean? This.
Thank you, Irene. Questions? I'll go to Dennis, then Lewis. Those are the last two questions I have.
Okay.
Dennis, you raise your hand.
Oh, I was just,
Stand up, please.
to be honest, I was just helping with the regional count because I looked at one of the points I like with the FIPT that I like to make though, when I was reading the minutes in the FIPT drafts back when the inspection request was going on, when the FIPT was still in draft form in '92, the cost for the inspection fell to the region in its entirety. So there wasn't the cost, like you're not costing NAWS, but the point also I want to make with like making the decision with the conference. If I came to my area and area spent money because one group said go do this, my home group would be upset. If I came to region and the region did something that cost money and resources because one area said do this is our conscience, how dare you not go with our conscience? Well, the region has more than one area in it, just like the world has more than one region in it. So, but yeah, those are. I was really just raising my hand for the regional part, but since I got the floor, I like those 2 points too.
Thank you, Dennis.
Go ahead, Lewis. That was easy.
I'm. Where do I have to stand?
Stand there, okay?
I'm Lewis. I'm an addict.
Hi, Lewis. I
And,
never would have made it to Gold Conference.
you know, so, yeah, I really wouldn't have. And anybody who knows me knows that I can do a presentation and a program, but this technology stuff just. The question I'm having, and I wanted to make a suggestion. I'll slow down. Make a suggestion to the board on this. It is when we do talk about the motions that we couldn't talk about, it would be really helpful if you all would provide the context as to why the region in the first place found it even necessary to request an audit. And I always think it's not helpful for people to assume it's because the fellowship doesn't understand financial statements, which we've kind of heard already. But the real issue is that there's been a long concern that the financial statements don't provide enough information, and that fellowship attempts to get the information have always been rebuffed. And so I think it would be really helpful when we discuss about the actual moratorium or the actual change in the FIPT, if there's a way we can provide information that people who can read the financial statements feel that they need. I think that would be really helpful as you prepare for the discussion next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. All right.
Thank you, Lewis. And I just want to say, as I said, we are continually finding ways to be more transparent, as transparent as possible, to provide as much information as possible. There is a load of information currently up at na.org regarding the FIPT. There is a huge amount of reading there, and we will continue, obviously, to provide as much information as we can. You make very good points, Lewis.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Edward.
Randy?
Hey, Irene, one more, and this is more of a procedural question.
Sure.
I know this came up at the conference participants meeting. I'm not sure what you would suggest as far as this is concerned. The last sentence of this reads, the suspension will expire at the close of WSC 2023. As we've all learned, I'm sorry, I'll slow down. As we've all learned, we don't want to make assumptions as far as when the next WSC is going to be. Would it be advantageous to change that language to the close of the next real or regular WSC?
Well, I mean, you could always suggest changes, but like we said, like this has gone out to everybody already. And, you know, I mean, we had language in 2018 supposing that there would be a face-to-face conference in 2020. I guess, I think, Randy, that's one of those things where I get your point completely, but I think that's going to be one of those things we're going to have to cross that bridge if we come to it. You know, in the event that that doesn't happen, I mean, I can't imagine that we wouldn't have to do some business virtually. I mean, we would have to in 2023 if we couldn't meet face to face. Let's just, I take your point. Let's just hope that doesn't happen.
I understand your point. Thank you.
We've now addressed motion number one.
Yay.
Am I correct in assuming the last four motions will not take much time? That this was really.
Well, the budget might, but I mean, the next three are very straightforward.
Okay. Yeah, they are. Okay, so what I'd like to do is we're gonna take a 15-minute break.
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll come back and deal with the other four motions. Like
Yes.
Irene said, three of them are really go quickly, but we will have.
Jeff, could I say something, please?
Yes, absolutely. Go
Just
ahead.
before we take a 15-minute break, which I definitely need. I was listening carefully, and I get the feeling that, I just wanted to express, like,
Hold on, excuse me. One second. We're having some, everyone in back, if you could please keep it down, because it's again background.
I won't be long. I won't be long. I won't be long. Like, we are 14 board members. We are members of home groups as well. We feel for NA. We ask questions. We are aware of the financial situation in the office. And like the last question I just heard, we did discuss the word real. And like, it's not the first time we speak about it. Like, all of us are aware of what you people are aware of. Like, we are the same. We're not different. Like, we're not a different entity. We are members of NA, and that's how I see it. Sometimes people think that we might be different or something. I just wanted to express that before we go for some coffee. And
Thank you, Yoel, and everyone should, we're all NA members here, okay, everyone.
Yes,
All right, so we're gonna go ahead, take a 15-minute break. That means we'll start up at 10:24.
Thank you, Yoel.
Thank you. All right, we are now going to proceed to motion number 2. Irene, go ahead. Thank you. You're on mute, Irene.
Okay, here we go. And I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to hand it over to Yoel, who's going to take us through this.
okay. My name is Yoel, and I'm an addict. I just want to say, besides I'm happy to be here, I recover in Hebrew, and I do speak a bit of English, so I'm going to start. Because the World Service Conference is being postponed until 2023, the conference cycle has been extended by 1 year. Motion 2 and 3 seek to extend the term length of the trusted servants elected by the World Service Conference, whose terms would expire mid-cycle. 3 board members, 2 human resource panel members, and 1 World Service Conference co-facilitator. The World Board is separate a motion only because it's a legal entity and has specific time frames for terms established by the World Service Conference. Similar decisions will need to be made in future about trusted servants whose terms may expire mid-cycle, since the pandemic has disrupted the conference cycle. But it's impractical to try and make those adjustments until after decisions are made about the World Service Conference cycle itself. If no decisions are made to the contrary, the next World Service Conference after 2023 will be in 2025. This is part of the ongoing discussions about the future of the World Service Conference. Motion 2, to extend terms of the World Service Conference elected positions for the 2 Human Resource Panel members and 1 World Service Conference co-facilitator currently set to expire in 2022 to 2023. The intent is to acknowledge the change in conference cycle due to the global pandemic. Financial impact, none. I'll go to motion 3, to extend terms of the 3 World Service Conference elected positions on the World Board, currently set to expire in 2022 to 2023. The intent to adjust for the change in conference cycle due to the global pandemic, and here as well, financial impact, none. So, as read, it is simple. If there are any questions or comments?
All right, questions. We got first Joel, Ramon, and Lee. Go ahead, stand up, please.
I'm Joel, I'm a grateful recovering addict.
Hey, Joe.
And the RD from Florida region, and I know that Ramon has his hand up, I'm sorry for jumping in front of him, but hypothetically, because this was discussed and been asked by some people, if these motions do not go through, if they do not pass, what is the board prepared for that in terms of what needs to be done?
Personally, I wouldn't be concerned like of my term, but I think it would be like we would lose some adjustment, and regional delegates as well were asking like, what if it was approved, how can they adjust their terms to the World Service Conference? So I'm not really sure. Maybe Irene would know.
Hi. Well, we don't really have a plan per se. I mean, it's obvious that the 3 board members would roll off. So the 3 board members are the current chair, Tim, the current treasurer, Jack, and Jose Luis.
Jose Luis.
So, yeah, so they would roll off. So we'd basically be from 2022 to 2023 with only 10 board members. We wouldn't have a chair, we wouldn't have a treasurer. So obviously we'd figure it out. We would have to appoint someone else chair and treasurer. Yeah, and they would just roll off, I guess. Then we would also, so to say, do we have a plan? No, but I mean, if that were to happen, obviously we would figure it out, but we're really, we'd be very surprised if these weren't voted in because they're perfectly reasonable. There's nothing unreasonable about them. They're to help the conference, so that's, I think, the best answer I can give to that one.
I said hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically. Hypothetically, no one expected a lot of stuff to happen that's happened, and we figured it out, so.
All right, thank you. Ramon, was that your question as well? Or you?
A little bit more. Joel, Ramon, AD from the Florida region. Okay, so you guys are saying figure it out. Now, if would this become some kind of legal issue that your board needs to sit full? And I'm trying to understand this, I'm new at this, so bear with me. I was taught early in recovery that if I didn't know to ask, so I'm asking because we're being asked. So if it fails and you guys are figuring it out, will it affect you in a legal standpoint?
I don't think it will affect legally, but it will affect workload. And as said, we will have no chair and the vice would have to be chair. Anyway, we would have to figure it out. But no, I don't see a legal issue.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Lee? Stand up and come up, please. Come up, come up to the microphone, please.
Come on, Lee.
Come on, Lee, let's go.
I'm Liam Maddox, RD Louisiana. Do either of the board members, can you tell us who the two co-facilitators of the conference are?
Mario, it's the second. Mario is the second. It's Daniel and Mario are the two co-facilitators.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee.
Craig.
I'm Maggie Craig. And I just wanted to add something to that question, because Joel and Irene were speaking from the board perspective. So in the spirit of transparency, I serve on the human resource panel. I'm one of the members that this would affect. And so I just need to tell you that first. The other thing is about, and we talked about it at the zonal forum a couple of weeks ago when we had two other board members and Joel just hit on it about workflow. There was a reason why the conference selected two co-facilitators and 4 HRP members. I serve right now, I'm coming up to be the panel leader for HRP. But what's important is that the workload. And so when you have two new members, the two newer members are the persons that were in training, like we have alternates. Those two newer members have been in training. So if, and I'm not going to be presumptuous to say this is reasonable and this is simple, because I'm not going to be that presumptuous. Nothing is a slam dunk. But what happens is if they're not approved, then the workload goes to the two newer members of HRP, and they lose the benefit of the two people, myself and the other member, who are mentoring them in the workload and the work process. So in effect, you're going to have two new people rather than two people in training and two people mentoring them and providing them information. The co-facilitator is the same thing. Our region, or I'm sorry, our zone had one of those co-facilitators that you guys, I'm pretty sure, are familiar with. And so when you take away, and those who have been to the conference know that that's a workload. You got one person doing something. Let me give you an example. Yesterday we had 3 interpreters. They were rotating the workload. And so with one co-facilitator, you got one person serving you rather than two people who can rotate the workload. That's what it really comes down to. And so, again, it's your decision, but I wanted you to have the full range of information in making that decision of that's what would happen for HRP. And the fact that we're getting ready to come into the season where names are going to be coming in for people to be considered for a world service position. And if that doesn't pass, which it might not, that means that those two newer people are going to be going through the process on their own. Not saying they can't get through it, but it just seems like it'd be better. Well, I'm not even gonna say that because it sounds like I'm just giving you the information. So I'm gonna stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And I'd like to build on that. Craig, you make it clear. And as you say, it's about experience and about, we have 3 new board members that haven't met yet face to face. And yeah, we lack the experience that we need anyway, because of the past year. And yeah, you made it very clear. Thank you, Craig.
All right, thank you very much. Now we got a question from online. Shane, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Shane C., alternate delegate, Bluegrass Appalachian Region. My question for Joel and Irene is, can they take a second to talk about what internal decision-making would look like with only 10 board members. If, what would consensus look like? Do we feel like we would really be getting the perspective of the areas that the current world board members as liaisons work with? Who would pick up the extra communication that Tim and Jack and Jose Luis normally do within the fellowship? And what would decision making look like with 10 people instead of 13? Thank you.
Irene? Well, I could say that we are used to. Unfortunately, we lost Mary Ellen. We did lose our chair. So Lake Tully, but we adjust ourselves, but it wouldn't be easy anyway. And we are like the board. Like if we lose Tim, he's from Australia, and I think we're going to lose some balance that we all give. Like I'm from Israel, and we have Hamid from Kuwait, and we kind of balance at the moment with the US members, and we have Irene from this part of Europe, from Ireland. But obviously it would change the game a little bit.
Yeah. And I want to add, obviously, we really hope that they don't get rolled off. We currently don't have a vice chair. We have there's 3 members of the EC. As you all know, Tally passed away as chair, and then Tim was acting vice chair for quite a while, and then he was elected chair, but we didn't elect a vice chair. We have a treasurer and a secretary, so obviously we have to get, a whole new EC. And as Yoel said, there's 3 people who've never even met face to face, who haven't even seen some of the other board members in person. Also, there's a big lack of women on the board, and either way, myself and Liv and Tana, the only women on the board, will be rolling off in 2024. So we're really hoping that the terms are extended and we can have 13 board members to the next conference in 2023, and then we can get some women elected to maintain the diversity and balance on the board.
All right, thank you very much. We got one more question. First back there, and then Kelly, if you can come up to the microphone, please. Yeah.
I'm Robert Maddox. I'm the regional delegate alternate for the Georgia region. And I think it's more to the point, and maybe a question to HRP, was that we knew the election cycle was coming up in 2023. Were there nominations ready to be presented to the service conference for this year? As an alternate, if this topic failed, then you would have the regions would be able to at least discuss and plan on voting those positions to be filled. And I think we got caught up in the, hey, we're pushing everything off to next year attitude, that rather than we still need to be presenting nominations to the conference for these positions so they can be vetted and voted on. Thoughts?
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
I'm that fucking guy.
Hey, that fucking guy, how are you?
A certified villain.
So how it will help delegates communicate the benefits and consequences to this motion, to their region and then to their areas. There are many different layers that have been communicated of consequences of how this would impact service. One particular example that is helpful to communicate is that if this motion does not pass, one of the significant consequences would be that at the World Service Conference in 23, we would have Mario facilitating the entire 6-day conference. If anyone has participated or observed, it is an exhausting physical effort to stand there and facilitate this for 8, 10, 12 hours for 6 days, which is why we have 2. And they alternate back and forth. If this motion does not pass, we will be putting the burden of facilitating the World Service Conference on one person at his first conference. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, seeing no other questions, we can go on to motion number 4, please.
Okay. The final call motion in the ICC.
Excuse me. Excuse me, just one second. The side conversations, please keep them down because the microphone picks them up and it makes it hard to understand. Go ahead, please, Joel. Thank you.
Yeah, I got clean in a noisy environment. That's fine. Very noisy. The final call motion is to approve the draft of the new book, A Spiritual Principle a Day. Motion 4, to approve the book contained in Addendum B, A Spiritual Principle a Day, as fellowship-approved recovery literature. The intent is to have an additional piece of fellowship-approved material available for use by the NA members, groups, and service committees. Financial impacts. The cost of creating this material has already been incurred. The only additional costs that would result from adopting this motion are entire production costs, which should be minimal. The approval of the draft. The approval draft is posted on the World Service Conference webpage, www.na.org conference. You can download it for free, and the paper copies are available to purchase from the web store at www.na.org web store for $10 plus shipping and handling. The background of the project and process of creating the draft is described in full in the essay in the ICC. I hate to speak in acronyms, but sometimes I will. We encourage you to review that material. Here are some of the main points. The idea for a project to create a book came from a survey contained in the 2016 call that was designed to help conference participants establish priorities for new literature, service materials, and issue discussion topics. In 2016, the highest rated of the 10 options for book length recovery material in the survey was Daily Meditation Book, Spiritual Principle a Day. Another option for daily meditation book based on Living Clean also scored very high. If you look at this graph, you can see that this was percentage, like 28% daily meditation spiritual principle a day got, and the Living Clean one was an idea, got 20% of the voices. So that scored very high as well. After discussing the survey result, by the way, I want to tell you that in 2016 in Israel, we had an assembly, and I was one of the people that went up to the chart. So I really know it's like a global vote. When these things come through to the conference, they've been workshopped all over the world and in Israel as well. The idea for the project to create a book came from a survey. Okay, I was there. After discussing the survey results with participants at the 2016 World Service Conference, the fellowship was surveyed about a preference. All NA literature is written by addicts for addicts. The results of the survey helped to frame the project plan for a new book that was included in the 2018 conference approval track material and presented at the 2018 World Service Conference. The SPAD project was approved at 2018 World Service Conference. A work group of 9 members from around the world, plus a board member, and the number of staff people quickly began to work. Typically, World Service work groups have a board member acting as a point person. In the case of the SPAD, the point person was Mary Ellen P. Tragically, she passed away during the project. We are so grateful for her service. Part of the miracle of this book draft is that the work continued despite the global lockdown and subsequent financial crisis that began in March 2020. The final in-person meeting of the work group took place just as the world was shutting down. And the board member who was then the point person, Hamed, I mentioned his name before, got stuck in Los Angeles at the close of the meeting. It took him 62 days to get home to Kuwait. That was kind of unbelievable, but Kuwait was shut down and he really couldn't leave the USA, and he was in Los Angeles for that long. By the time the project was again approved at the 2020 World Service Conference, 2 batches of entries had been drafted and reviewed by the fellowship. Members around the world continued to submit advanced material. The background continued to, the work group, continued to meet to shape this material into individual entries. And the fellowship continued to review drafts and provide input. All of the work happened virtually and was reduced staff members. The book contains 89 entries, spiritual principles. You can go to the next one, Irene. Over 98% of the members who responded to the survey about the project wanted the book to be similar in format to Just for Today. Quotation, elaboration, reflection. And input during review reinforced that approach. Review and input drafts of the material were released in 6 batches for 90 days at a time. Input was received from dozens of countries on every continent except Antarctica. I like this one, except Antarctica. Early on, the work group developed a set of standards. Irene, we went to the next one. Early in the work group developed a set of standards for the entries that seem almost like words to live by. The work group believed that entries should not be agenda-driven or to be sweet, voracious, or otherwise cause eyes to roll, and that entries should be realistic, reliable, and inclusive, hit different notes, and have different functions, target our heartstrings, expand understanding, and help us laugh at ourselves. We hope you all feel that when you read the draft. Before we go to questions, Irina, I've allowed myself to read a quote from today's draft. It calls Surrender, to be very short. Surrender and Tradition 1, 12th of February. As I continue to surrender in my recovery, I will take a moment to embark the uncomplicated idea that I am a part of NA, just as NA is a part of me. I'll say a prayer for an addict who lives thousands of miles from me as a way to honor and practice Tradition 1. That was from today's quotation. Thank you. So if there are any comments, questions about approving the SPAD, I think it's the first time I said SPAD because I like to.
Any questions here on motion number 4? I'd like to ask something to you guys is with the, and it might be a budget question, You know, the budget projects 18% cost increases. Everyone here is aware of inflation now. How is that, book prices are now at $12.15. Has there been discussion because of these cost increases of increasing the price of the SPAD book when it comes out? Because there's more costs involved with the production of this book than of any other book piece in a long time.
I could tell you my opinion, but maybe Irene knows a more precise answer.
Well, we haven't established the price yet. We obviously, there's a few things that we would feel would be premature. We don't, we have to wait till the book is voted in. And then once it's voted in, things like what it's going to look like physically, the actual production and costs, that's discussed then. But obviously, I'm assuming we would, this 18% increase is due to the global supply chain, the rise of paper, shipping costs. So obviously, it would be reflective of that. But as of now, we haven't got to that point yet.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on SPAD? All right, thank you very much. We'll go to number 5, last item. The budget.
No questions on SPAD. You got away easy. What the heck?
I can tell you that.
We're saving it up for you, Irene.
Very good explanation.
I can come up with some.
Oh, come on, you guys. Come on, ask you all some hard questions now. Okay, if you want to, we'll move on.
Practice any of those principles? No. Question,
Okay.
is that what you wanted?
Yeah. The first one took an hour and 15 minutes. Anyway, okay.
That's a tough question. Okay, go ahead. Number 5.
We have one question from LaWanda.
LaWanda, go ahead. Ask a question.
Hi, family. LaWanda, grateful recovering addict from the South Atlanta area. I do have a question. And my question is, was there any consideration for when members were writing and they referenced the literature to put the reference pages? And in some cases, when you read SPAD, some of the members reference the literature, but they don't even reference the subtopic.
You're muted. There we go.
That's a good question. I'm a great fan of NA literature. I was part of a translation committee in Israel translating the Just for Today, and there was a big awareness of the page. I think you're right. It's worth looking into it, because in this book we just give that it's from such and such with no page.
Well, it does have it on. I have it here in front of me. Like under each quote, it has the quote, and then just like the Just for Today,
the chapter. It gives you the chapter.
It'll say the book and the chapter and the section. Like this one, I just opened it up to March 7th.
Yes, ma'am. I have the book as well, and there are pages, because I read it just about every day. I won't lie and say every day. There are, so what you said is correct for some days, but you would either have to have the PDF or Drive to find exactly where they're talking about, because when they reference the literature in my 11th step, I go back and I read that portion of the literature, depending on how small, maybe the whole section. But some pages, it just might say, living clean, the journey continue. And it won't tell you the subtopic. And nowhere in there does it tell you the page.
Okay, well, I can answer you that about the page. Now, obviously, I'm flicking through it, and I have not yet come across one where it doesn't say the chapter. It either says, like I'm opening it here, it says either the step or the chapter. There's a reason why there's no page numbers. It's because this book is going to be translated into many, many languages, okay? And in different languages, different things are in different pages. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
something
I understand exactly what you're saying. So when it's translated in the various languages, why wouldn't the pages correspond with that, just like what I just for today?
because okay, well, first of all, okay, so what I'm saying is, okay, for example, I just threw one open here. It's referencing Living Clean. Okay, chapter 5, amends and reconciliation. Okay, what page that quote is going to be on is going to be different in the Swedish Living Clean, and the Spanish Living Clean, and the Japanese Living Clean.
There was no misunderstanding in the language, in the English that you're speaking. I understood what you're saying. So I was saying when they translate it to the various languages, because there will be a committee, there will be a whole book. Everybody working on this. I'm trying to use as less words as possible. Everyone working on this could help find the corresponding pages, because all of our other literature gives you the corresponding pages to just for today, except for the new just for today where there's missing page numbers. We know that is something that is in our 5th edition of the basic text. So when that happens, I
can tell you that that's why it's a draft, and that's why we're looking for some input. And I'm sure the work group will consider what you just brought up, and maybe.
But I can tell you that
so much so well.
Okay, but page references don't work with translations. That's all I can tell you. So
Irene, I understand exactly what you're saying. So I'm saying when they do the translation, why not have a committee that finds the corresponding pages to match their translation? I understand exactly what you're saying. I understood.
Excuse me, Luana. I think now the question's been asked. It's been answered. The board has heard exactly what you're saying.
Yes, and that's why I said thank you, Yoel. I was going back on.
So let's move on. Is Robert the next one? You have Michelle, or who'd you have?
His hand is
Amitabh?
up and down a little bit, but yes, we have.
Amitabh and Robert. Okay, Amitabh, go ahead. Where'd you go? I lost him.
I lost him.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm here. My name is Amitabh. I'm an addict. Just to add to what Irene and Joel were saying, the work group did consider putting pages on it. If you worked in translations, you will understand.
I think we're having a hard time understanding you. If you could get closer to your microphone, please.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to add to what Irene and Yoel said about the page references from the quotations. The work group did consider it. If you worked in translations, you'll understand to find the exact page in the translated book is almost like translating the entire book again. It would double, triple, increase it by 4 times the amount of time it would take to translate it. And one of the hopes that we had while working on the project was their interest would get piqued, sort of, I mean, they'd read the quote and try and look for it and maybe read that portion of the book where it was from. So we had two points to make, one was get to read more literature and make it easier for translation bodies, because it's really hard. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amitabh.
Robert.
No, okay, good. Okay, are there any other questions, George?
My name's George. I'm an addict. I'm the public relations chair for the Northeast Georgia area, among other things. Going back to the price increase or whatever, the 18%, I was just wondering if the board could speak to our process of taking all the literature electronically, because, I'm trying to hang in with Generation X. I guess I'm probably more the Pepsi generation, but I do also have all my literature on my phone, my tablet, and I was just kind of interested in what that process would be, what it would look like. And, you know, because, you know, I guess I'm kind of I'm a little bit late, but I'm kind of a hippie too. I'm not trying to kill any more trees than we have to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, George. I think the board has heard your input. All right, I think there are no other questions, but I have been asked, and this is when we speak on stuff, acronyms. Not everyone understands the acronyms that we use, and sometimes we need to actually say the words. Okay, so just remember that. All right, we are done with number 4. Let's move to motion number 5, please.
Give me 1 second now, I gotta pull it up. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, a slow techie person here. Talks amongst yourselves.
Take your time.
Okay. All right, now.
Elected.
Apparently. Hi, Irene, how you all?
All right, okay, how you doing?
Another day in paradise.
Is that Dennis?
That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
How you doing? Nice to see you. For some reason, wherever the camera is, you guys all look very far away, so I just see little people in the distance, but I can make out your voice there, yeah. All right, so number 2 of 3 PowerPoints, and this whole one is dedicated to the budget. So, okay, so normally the budget is in the CAT, right? And that's normally published 90 days before the World Service Conference. And it's usually not translated due to time constraints. And many groups don't workshop the CAT. And the CAT is the Conference Approval Tract. Okay, sorry, not using the acronym, the Conference Approval Tract. So the Conference Agenda Report, which we just covered, normally it's motions, usually by the World Board and regions. And the Conference Approval Tract is things like the budget and projects, and that's usually considered more businessy. And I know my region like hardly ever workshops that. A lot of people don't. But anyway, so we're saying this because this is the first time it's ever included with the CAR. So if you're an RD and you're saying, oh, this is not normally included, just so you know, this is like a first time for this. Okay. So anyway, so look, these PowerPoints, it only covers the main point of the interim CAR CAT. So we would encourage you to read the document itself for more information, all right? So the ICC, I don't know how you're working it there, if you have copies on the tables but there is a very lengthy essay on the budget. And it goes into very clear, I believe, detail, even for someone like myself, who's not an accounting person. It explains line by line what the budget is and how we present it and how we report on it and how to read it. So, yeah, all right. So if you're, okay, so it's a kind of a complex document. Our objective in the PowerPoints, which you will obviously you might be using when you're doing the presentations yourself, it's just to highlight a couple of items that may be of interest to you. And also to point out how the budget is different from different cycles. And if you want to know more, please do read the essay, do read the budget, and then please write to us with any questions. And I had put up the World Board email and my own personal email up there. So it's the budget's quite complex. We have 5 offices in 5 different countries with 5 different currencies. And we handle hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions in many different languages. So just for anybody who doesn't know, we have a World Service office in Brussels, which handles all of the European orders. There's one in Iran, there's a distribution office in India, and there's a World Service office in Canada. So this talks about, this is, so the 2021 budget reflects the projections based on real income and expense from the previous fiscal year. And our fiscal year runs from July to July. And it also anticipates any trends. So for example, some major trends is that, member contributions was up by 12%, and literature income we expect to go up as well. And we expect the cost of goods to go up by 18%, and conference support by 3%. So those are some of the things that we anticipate. Also, what's different about this is that this is a one-year budget. Of course, we anticipate an increase in literature income since we believe in-person meetings have been opening and members, may want to be in person buying more literature. As you know, in March 2020, literature purchasing practically ground to a halt, like there was 90% less than there normally would be. Events ground to a halt. So all these sources of income ground to a halt, and they appear to be starting to recommence. I know in my region, we're having a face-to-face convention in a couple of weeks, and it's different in different countries. It's different in Israel, but I believe in the United States. I went to the United States. I was in Florida and walking around Universal Studios a few weeks ago. So I know things have opened up there. So obviously we should note that anticipated income and cost of goods associated with the potential new book, they're in the budget as contingent. Because obviously this piece of literature doesn't vote it in, that would be rare. I was personally lucky enough to be at the World Service Conference when our 6th edition and our Living Clean and our Traditions was voted in. And I believe most of those were unanimous. So of course that we've already spoken of the cost of goods, the increasing worldwide cost of goods. Any of you that are in business are probably aware of that. Any of you, I don't know if you've experienced literature delays. I know in Israel, they certainly did. I don't know, did that get resolved yet? Yeah.
Partly. We're still waiting for basic text. But there was a month or two of waiting for literature in Israel. Made some people very unhappy.
Yeah, there's been massive supply chain issues. Yes, yeah. I think there was a boat outside the port in Los Angeles stuck out. So obviously inflation is rising worldwide. The shipping and infrastructure has also increased. So the budget corresponds to that. Now there's also been an increase in member contributions as well on the plus side. So I don't remember, I think the last graph I saw this, the last time it was like something like $118 were needed to cover the cost per meeting. So what this graph shows is trying to show it in very simple terms. In NA, we talk about self-support. And this is not just an NA World Service issue, it's a regional issue. I'm sure all of your regions rely on literature sales and events to keep your regional services going. And like Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, they fund 70% of their services through direct member contributions. Before the pandemic, NA World Services, only 10% of our services are being funded by direct member contributions. And now, of course, that has risen. But anyway, in order to keep NA World Services running, if each group in the world contributed $1.48 a week, it would be completely funded by member contributions. But at the moment, it's 38 cents a week. It works out to, So that's how that's changed a bit. Hopefully, you have noticed in your regions as well an increase in member contributions. I think people have been very generous throughout the pandemic. So the proposed budget for 2022 to 2023 projects that almost 25% of NA World Services operating income will come from fellowship contributions. So the amount listed in the budget is 12% more than was contributed in the 2021 fiscal year. is the Invest in Our Vision discussions. And we'd like to see, we have a goal that we'd like to see member contributions make up 70% of NAW's expenses, as it does for AA. And obviously, you know, only NA members can contribute to NA. We accept no outside contributions. So the only way to raise contributions is for members to maybe more embrace the philosophy of self-support rather than relying on the sale of literature. So that's one of our hopes with that. So this is divided up into activity areas. Our budget is divided up into 4 main activity areas. And you'll see the differences there in the chart between from the last cycle to this cycle. So obviously events are the same and conference support are the same. Fellowship development is lower, and that's mostly to do with travel. You know, before, for example, the African Zonal Forum, that was heavily supported and financially supported by NA World Services. And, you know, they haven't, Yoel was there. He could tell you more about that if anyone was interested. I haven't personally been there, but they are a zone that's starting off that relied heavily on NA World Services support. Also, the World Board and staff did travel at Region's request to various events. Like if it wasn't a pandemic, Yoel and I would be right there in the room with you. So bummer for us, we can't be, but that's the way it's gone. And then the reason why there's more money into literature production furloughed from NA World Services. And so the remaining staff are mostly focused on 50% of the focus on the office is on literature production and distribution. So it's 47% of the resources. So this is the graph we always have in the annual report. And like I was saying, the annual report isn't out yet, but it's coming soon. So, you know, I'm sure those of you who read the annual report and are good with budgets know that we allocate fixed operational costs. So these include like accounting, personnel, overhead, technology, and we put them in 4 activity areas in our budget. So the factors that would be like the number of staff and the amount of hours devoted to an activity, and the percentage of overhead, such as building space, equipment, bank charges, you know, utilities, things like this. So the percentages of fixed costs allocated for each area of activity change over time, but never this dramatically. And the big dramatic change, as I said, was that most of our staff now work to support literature production and distribution. We have more titles than ever and more languages than ever before. And, you know, to ensure the sustainability of NA World Services and to meet our responsibilities that the World Service Conference has assigned to us, under the present circumstances, it was necessary to prioritize. So this has become the major focus and the major priority. We've also adjusted allocations to reflect current conditions, but this isn't a change in our mission or a projection for the future after this budget period. This is a crisis adjustment. So, you know, we hope to be able to return to more fellowship developments, obviously when these difficult times are behind us. So there's a lot of very detailed information on this in the ICC essay. Okay, so that's kind of the main points that we have on the PowerPoint. So I'm going to take down the PowerPoint, and but that may be helpful to you guys when you're presenting this to your regions to have that as a background. All right, so those are the main points. You have any questions?
All right, questions. I can see hands. Okay, first I got Matt, Robert. All right, go ahead, Matt. Come on up, please.
Hey, Matt. Going back to the beginning when you were talking about the different offices, I noticed that you didn't mention the service office in Russia. Is that no longer operational any longer?
Well, it's not one of the 5 World Service offices, that they had a distribution center, but it wasn't it wasn't the 5 World Service offices where there are staff directly employed by the World Board.
Okay.
So no, any World Services is not running their distribution center.
Thank you.
And here, Robert?
Robert Fanatic. Question regarding the literature distribution, the value adjustment for Iran, the $200,000. Did you go into detail about what that value adjustment actually was? It says it's exchange rates, but I don't understand what that means.
Okay. I'm just trying to find where you're looking at here.
2023 World Service projected expenses, second paragraph, page 25.
Page 25.
Says literature distribution, Iran, we had a large value adjustment for 2021, only due to exchange rates. While it is not possible to forecast future exchange rates, we do not expect the same circumstances. This is a very large adjustment. This is $200,000.
Yeah.
Irene, could you explain, you want to explain exchange rates or you want me to?
Well, if you could, to be honest with you, I'd have to look a little bit more into that.
Yeah, I do accounting, so it's my field of expertise, actually. It actually has to do with the dollar. The US dollar has been going up and up because interest rates are starting to think they're going up and up. And so you have to do, in Iran, the currency is in whatever the Iran's currency is. So they have to exchange dollars, constantly dollars for whatever that currency is, and you lose it because the dollar is going up. Okay, so you're getting less of that foreign currency. So it happens all the time in international companies. You know, that
My understanding is that money doesn't flow between the US and Iran.
No,
it doesn't directly, but it's still, the money in Iran gets converted, okay, for US financial statements. That's really the explanation of it. And if you want to get into international currency exchanges and stuff like that, take a couple years in college and you can get there. But it really is the exchange, the conversion of financial information into dollars. They still have to exchange money.
Right.
Okay, in Iran.
I know the currency is the RIA, and we do know that Iran has huge inflation. It's an internal problem there. There is huge inflation, and it's affecting the RIA, which is
I think as Europeans or Americans, we can't even imagine the rate of inflation. It's really outrageous. You won't believe it. I think that's one of the reasons, Joel.
And my only other concern was in last year's budget, we were $500,000 over budget. Yeah, over budget last year, I believe. For March 2020, but expenses for 2020 fiscal year were $556,000 over budget. This is page 19, introduction to the budget, last paragraph. My concern is that we're projecting fellowship funds to increase over the next year when services are just really restarting in the fellowship. So a lot more regional expenses are going to incur this year than they did last year. I think what we saw was when everything shut down, people just forwarded the funds to the World Service Office. Well, they're not going to do that this year. They're going to spend that money rebuilding their service structures. And I think it's a little bit not prudent, I guess I would say, to expect an increase in the fellowship funds in the next budget. And also in a retraction year, I don't understand why the World Board would increase the budget rather than try to contract it and keep it a little bit smaller, taking those things into effect with inflation and everything.
Okay, well, alls I can tell you is that, no, I completely agree with you that meetings are reopening and regions will be, but we do expect that there to be a huge increase in, I mean, from last year, from 2020 in literature sales. So I guess, you know, we're basing this really on events reopening and on literature sales. And we're also basing the budget on, you know, trying to reinstate our services, also trying to bring staff back that were furloughed, trying to return to fellowship development. So like, you know, it's a one-year budget. The budget last year was an emergency budget that was unlike any other. So, you know, I personally have watched, you know, the staff in NAWS, how they work. And I do believe that our executive director is very prudent. So like, you know, like I said, I'm not a money person myself, but what I do, what I am is I've been on the board for 10 years and I've watched the really responsible management of our funds at NA World Services. So, I mean, I would imagine that projections are based on, you know, they have a very strong feeling and indication that we are going to be able to achieve those targets. But obviously it's a budget. So, you know, you're right, you know, anything could happen. We'll just have to adjust as we go along, but we have to make provisions for stuff.
I think one of the things that can also consider is that as, yeah, service committees are going to cost more because now they're meeting face to face, is that also groups are reopening face to face and they're getting more donations also to send up the, through the fund flow. Okay, are there any other questions? I got one here for Sergio, and that was, why maintain the financial percentage for the WSC and decrease it for fellowship development?
Okay, well, because coming, the fiscal year is from June 22 to June 23, and we plan to have a face-to-face World Service Conference in that. You know, the World Service Conference usually costs around $500,000 to run. And also, but the fellowship development, as I said, we have made a decision as a board to really limit our travel. Okay, we haven't limited fellowship development services as what we do online. Like, for example, like we're here now, I'm in Ireland and y'all's in Israel, we're still doing the service. We're just not traveling to Florida to do it. And so it's not that we're doing less fellowship development. How we're doing it has changed. We're doing it virtually. And, and we have decided as a board to have absolutely minimum travel until April of 2023. That's why, you know, we don't need as much money. But obviously, you know, we hope that things return more to normal. It's very challenging doing all of this virtually, you know, because as you know, like we're on here for what, 2 hours, but if we were there for like 2 days, you know, we would be available all the time. And to be honest with you, a lot of the information gets exchanged because we want to hear what's going on for you guys as well. It gets exchanged over coffee. And, you know, the meeting in between the meeting and the meeting after the meeting, like we lose out a lot not being able to go places in person. As you know, so that I believe, I don't know, does that answer your question where the changes?
Okay, Sergio, let me see if I can get you on here. Hey, Sergio, I've asked you to unmute. Does that answer your question?
For me, it's okay. I understand clearly the intention. And thanks for your service.
Thanks, Sergio.
I think I got another question on why is Iran not included in the budget, in the financials?
Okay, well, it is included in that we show what's happening in Iran, but that money can't leave Iran. So it's not part of the normal fund flow. It can't be used for work at NA World Services. It has to stay internally. So we show it for complete transparency because it is a World Service office, but it's not part of the normal fund flow. Like we can't use it to do fellowship development out of Los Angeles or translations. It can only be used within Iran because of the political situation.
Okay, does that answer your question, Sergio? Oh, excuse me, that was Carol in there. All right, are there any other questions on the budget? All right, terrific. So you got off easy, Irene. What's going on? You guys are living charmed lives. Hey, but thank you very much. I'd like everyone to thank Irene and for their.
Yeah, I think we can't go anywhere before we thank Laura. Laura, you've done a wonderful job. And
Yes.
it's really heartwarming and outstanding to see you there, making it available to all of our fellowship. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, thank you guys for being here. And you're also welcome to attend our other workshops that are happening later today. That will be of interest to everyone, I am sure.
And can I just say, maybe I could extend that invitation to other board members. I know myself personally, I have a business planning group I have to go to after this. But Jeff, I really want to thank you. That was excellent facilitation and you were really helpful and you have a wealth of knowledge and thanks for sharing it with us. And also to the translators. I used to do that translation service. I got clean in France and I know that's a tough job. So thanks to the interpreters as well and all you guys. And please do stay in touch. I put my email up there. We're available 24, now that it's virtual, we're available 24/7, but don't call me at 3 in the morning, okay?
Thank you, Irene. Hey, our first liaison. Awesome. Hey, all right, thank you, everyone. Now for the schedule, we are on break until when? When's the next workshop? When's the leadership?
The leadership is 12 o'clock, but we could almost use a couple minutes earlier, but let's just stay on schedule.
Okay, so we're on break till 12 o'clock for the leadership panel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
I really want to stop 15 minutes early.
Kelly.
Stop recording.